Hello, my name is Jared, and I'm going to be showing you some of the amazing functionality of the new ZYGOTE 3D Anatomy Atlas and Dissection Lab. This app was made by ZYGOTE Media Group and the Lindsay Project Corporation. It's a really fun, easy way to learn anatomy. It's been tested in medical school anatomy labs, university anatomy classes, and you'll be amazed at how powerful and easy this software is to use. One of the best features of this app is how incredibly interactive it is. I mean, there's a lot of apps out there that try to teach you anatomy using flashcards and images and even sometimes animations, but this is the first time that a full collection of 3D human anatomy has been put into an app right in your iPad. So you're able to view it from any angle. Right off the bat, you see just how incredibly easy it is to navigate around. You use one finger to rotate, use two fingers to move, and do a two-finger pinch to zoom in and out. Pretty simple. Now you can select any piece of anatomy just by touching on it. This will bring up the name of the anatomical piece, as well as give you the option to learn more about that piece. So I click on the little I next to the name here. A little menu comes up that teaches you a little bit about that anatomical structure. So this way you can quickly and easily learn the names and the functions of any anatomical structure in the body. Okay, so right off the bat I'm going to show you a couple of the settings because I want to change a few things here. Up at your top right, you've got right there in the middle, you've got your settings menu. And here you've got a couple settings you can change. You can see by default you have a silhouette of the body. You can turn that on and off, and that's just based on personal preference. I'm going to go ahead and leave it off for now. You've got slice, we're going to go over that a little later. You've got black-white, and that changes the background color from black to white. So that's nice. I'm going to keep it white for now. So now let me show you just how easy it is to bring in some anatomy pieces. By default, right when you start the program, you're presented with the skull and the circulatory and lymphatic system of the head, but that's just a small sample of what you can bring in here. So first of all, down at the bottom, you've got your Tools menu, and I'm going to go over everything about this menu in a minute, but for now I'm just going to select all and remove all so that I can start with a clean slate. Now up at your top left, here's where you bring in your anatomy, and you could bring it in a couple different ways. You could bring it in by organ, picking any individual organ to bring in. You can do it by region, if you want to study just a certain region of the body. You can do it by system. You can bring in an entire system, by tissue, or all, which has a list of over 3,000 anatomical pieces that you can bring into your scene. So let's go ahead and get started. We'll bring in a couple organs here. I'm going to bring in the heart and the liver. So there's the beginnings of our scene. Next I'm going to go to region, and I'll bring in, let's bring in the back. And this brings in all the muscles and bones and everything associated with the anatomy of the back. Next I'll go to systems. Now if I want to bring in the entire skeletal system, you can see the icon down there at the bottom is already highlighted, and the reason for that is because some of the skeleton is already in my scene. So the first time I click on that button, my spine disappears. The second time I click on it, the entire skeleton is brought into my scene. And just look at that amazing amount of detail. These are just really cool models. Every single bone is individually labeled. So, alright, next we have tissue. We can bring in, let's say, our ligaments. Clicking on there, and you can see all the ligaments came in, and again they're all individually labeled so you can study them. I'm going to go ahead and turn them off again. And then we can go to all, and rather than trying to look for an item in this ginormous list, I'm just going to start typing in the large intestine and try to bring it in, and there it is. So there we have it, the large intestine. Okay, now let me show you a little bit more about the interface. There's a couple of buttons up here at the top. If I have one item selected, these four converging arrows at the very top, when you click on that once, it resets your view back to the default. When you click on it again, it zooms in on whatever item you currently have selected. So that's kind of handy. Next to that we have the undo button, and what this does is allows you to undo the last thing you brought in or deleted. So you can see my large intestine is toggling on and off by doing that. So I'm going to go ahead and leave it on. Alright, moving on to the right we have the help menu, And here is what you would expect. It's all the tools it teaches you about and how to use the app a little bit more in depth. Next we have the settings that we went over, and I'll go over some of these other ones a little bit later. To the right of that we have the Save Configuration menu, and this is really powerful. This is the way to save your scenes. So everything in my scene, all the anatomy that I have loaded, the background color, the rendering styles, even the background being black or white, is all saved when I hit save down here at the bottom. So now I've got a new icon with what I have in the scene right now. So we'll be going over that a little bit more in depth with the rendering video, but I just wanted to show you what that is. So right there you can see that this app is really powerful. A really easy way to learn anatomy, a fun way to learn anatomy, even if you're just interested in the human body. If you're wondering where you can get this, right now it's available on the iTunes App Store, and it's for under $30, which is pretty amazing. And with just the features I've showed you so far, you know, that's well worth the money, but there's so much more that this app can do. So I'm going to show you just real quick a couple of the other tools it has that really set this thing apart from any other app that's out there. Alright, down at the bottom we've got 3 different icons. Down at the bottom left we've got the slice tool. And what this does, if I select a couple of muscles here, select some of these back muscles, I click on my slice tool, now I'm able to interactively slice through that muscle or those muscles and see the underlying anatomy. Just like that. How cool is that? You can rotate around, turn it back on, and interactively slice through any anatomical feature. So we'll be getting more into depth in that. I'm going to do a whole video on just using that tool because it's really powerful, but there's a little taste for you. Okay, down in the middle, we went over this just a little bit. This is where you can select all and remove it. You can select just a single piece and remove it. Hitting undo again brings that back. But at the top we have our rendering tools. Now by default everything you bring in is rendered with what we call the solid render, so it all looks realistic. But I can change the way it looks if I select everything. I click on clear. It renders everything with kind of a clear look to it. If I click on X-ray, you get this really cool looking X-ray effect to your scene. And while I'm at it, let me just show you the difference that changing the background from black to white does when you're dealing with these renders. So there we have the same render but with a black background. It just makes a really cool effect. And there's a black background with a clear. Select all and go back to solid to get it back to the way it was. And I'm going to turn my background back to white. Okay, and the last one is highlight, but rather than highlight everything, which really wouldn't make much sense, I'm going to just pick one item, pick the trapezius here, click highlight, and it highlights that muscle. And click on another muscle and highlight it. So that's the highlight render. Okay, click on all and solid, and it goes back to being solid. Alright, and the last tool, which is really quite handy, is the gender select button. Down at the bottom right, you can see the male symbol down there. Everything we've been doing so far has been with the male anatomy. But if I click on this little button, every single model in the scene is being swapped out for the female equivalent. So just like that, now we're dealing with the female anatomy. And that might not be super clear into what I'm trying to show you here, so I'm going to go ahead and go to Systems, and I'm going to bring in her skin. And by default she has clothes on, but you can take those off if you want. So there's our woman. If I make her body clear, you can see that her anatomy is still underneath everything. Now if I change the button back to male, all the anatomy will be swapped for the male equivalent. And again, he still has everything underneath. So, very cool tool. It's fun to use, it's easy to use, it's a great way to learn anatomy, it's a great way just to learn more about the body. So I hope you've enjoyed this tutorial, and I hope you enjoy learning anatomy with the ZYGOTE 3D Anatomy Atlas and Dissection Lab. Again, it's available on the iTunes App Store, for the iPad, and for the iPhone.